Hello again from Forecast Sports. It's me, William, and today I'll be doing the big podcast today with all our big news and big talking points for this week. So, of course, this week we've got a lot to chat about, especially the FIFA World Cup, which is on at the moment with some exciting matches going on. And it's full noise, so many matches. I can't believe it. It's four a day at some days. So just full on watching. I'm watching pretty much every game. So enjoying that. And then today I'll also be talking about some Super Rugby, New Zealand, the Oceania competition. And then I'll have a talk about cricket, because Blackcaps are over in England, of course. Second test coming up. And the Women's T20 World Cup is on overseas. So that is a big tournament to cover. So a lot is going on, to be sure. And I'll also bring some events that are to come within the next week or so. Plus, at the end, I'll bring you some FIFA World Cup previews, just to sneak in there. And those previews are England versus Croatia and USA versus Australia. So if you want to listen to them, stay till the end, because I have a big chat before then about all things sport. So stay here for more. Okay, let's have a chat about the FIFA World Cup, which is in full flight at the moment. And we have so many games going on. Started on Friday, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, it was an exciting kickoff. An opening ceremony, and a lot has gone on since then. A lot of games and a lot of watching for me. So let's have a look at some of the matches that have been and review a few of them, because there have been some big news throughout. Alright, let's have a chat about... So first of all, we had Mexico versus South Africa. Now this one was quite an interesting match, because Mexico and South Africa overall got 3 red cards in the match. I think that's more, or at the same amount as the whole of the World Cups in 2018 and 2022. So there was there was a lot of messy behaviour going on there, and it was a few of them were possibly quite possibly on the other side, maybe not red cards, but there was some poor decision making from both sides, and we thought it'd carry on. Some people were saying, oh, this is going to be a World Cup full of red cards, but no red cards since. So it's obviously just an outlier match that kicked us off. The opening ceremony was quite an interesting ceremony with I watched a bit of it and wasn't hugely intrigued, but it's just the same as most opening ceremonies, but wasn't spectacular. Mexico, of course, hosting that first opening ceremony, and then Mexico versus South Africa took place after that, and Mexico won 2-0. I thought it was quite a scrappy sort of game. No one really took it by the scruff of the neck. South Africa were just poor. They're not the South Africa we've seen in other World Cups with their counter-attacking team they are. They weren't able to link those passes. There were a few just poor balls that they could have really took it to Mexico if they had their execution in Mexico's half, but Mexico really were too good when they... I thought Alvarado was actually great at right midfield. He was quite everywhere, and they did play well. Raul Jimenez, of course, scoring his goal, which puts him in the all-time list for Mexico in goals. And they didn't make me as all World Cups at the start, they struggled to get into the match. And often, like we've seen quite a few of these matches, the teams haven't warmed into the game for quite a while. Like we saw this morning, Netherlands vs Japan, really boring first half, and then it just turns on when there's something on the line, when there's that want for the win, because they both went for it at the end, but Mexico, took it out 2-0. The red card at the end, there was obviously the red cards, 2 red cards to South Africa. The slap was, some people were saying that it wasn't a red card, but there was an angle there that showed it. It didn't look good, and sometimes that's what the VAR, like slow-mos, show. They often always look worse, but I don't know if it was intentional. I haven't really looked into that much, but it's a red card. He slapped him in the face. I don't think you can complain too much about that. And then Montez's red card for Mexico. Yeah, that was poor. He's what, the 90th minute, and you're 2-0 up, and he decides he's gonna knock in a goal scoring opportunity for South Africa, knock him over, one of the South Africans over, and take the red card, and that's put him out possibly for the rest of the World Cup, unless they make it through, which they should after that game. So hopefully that's not the end of his World Cup, but it was a poor decision. Why would you get a red card that late in the game when you've got the 2-0 deficit for them? But overall, Mexico took it out there. Korea versus Czech Republic. I thought the first half was really slow as well. No one really took it by the scruff of the neck, but Korea, of course, won the game. They looked really good in that second half. But Czech Republic was such big players. They're so good off those set pieces. That's where they got their first goal for Krejci. And Mboum looked really good. Hwang Mboum, just playing those 1v1s. He's quite a phenomenal player. Mboum, he really stood out for me during that game. And Son didn't really get much of a chance, but during the game didn't really stand out for me. Yeah, so that's pretty much my rundown for Korea versus Czech Republic. Obviously, Korea won 2-1, sorry. And I was feeling after those first 2 games, this is pretty mid-start. Then we got to Canada versus Bosnia. Now, that was a close game. Again, wasn't hugely entertaining. Bosnia, just like Czech Republic, good off those set pieces. And that's where they got their big opportunity through Lukic. But Canada, they looked like they dominated, and they really should have gone ahead early on. But it was an even game, really. 1-1 Canada-Bosnia. You can't really complain about that. But it really turned on this World Cup when we moved to USA versus Paraguay. Now, USA were just phenomenal in that first half. I really liked how they moved the ball, and Pochettino has got them playing some really exciting football. I saw them, McKennie was so important for USA, running that attacking midfield. He was just allowed that fluidity, running around the final third for USA, and just produced so many great opportunities through his movement, taking players with him, and they created overloads on that left-hand side. Anthony Robinson was important for them as well, making those long runs, because they were angled well left, so they'd rotated, so they were much higher on the left side, and Robinson was moving really high at left back, and Pulisic, overlapping Pulisic, so Pulisic had room, and so often they were able to just put those balls into the box, and Balogun is quite phenomenal finishing. He's in some quite good form. So it's great to see him get some goals in the bank. Paraguay, though. their defence is their primary asset, and they were split to pieces against USA. Not a great sign when we look at what happened in the other match between Australia and Turkey, because they are going to struggle in this pool if they don't pull it together. Their main sort of players in Ciso and Almiron weren't utilised enough, I don't think, and because their defence just couldn't get it out of there, and USA attacked that first half and produced some great entertainment. Well, then in Group B, Qatar played Switzerland. 1-1 between that. Now, Switzerland looked like they were in the hot seat. They probably should have scored more. That's where they lacked in that final third. And Bolo obviously scored the penalty, but I think he should have got a few more. I think I gave him man of the match, but they weren't able to produce the big opportunities that they usually do. And that's where they found... They felt really in the hot seat, and then suddenly, in the 95th minute, Qatar scored a goal. Cookie, his header after a fantastic ball from Ahmed. That cross into the box was phenomenal, and it was pretty much one of the only chances of the game, possibly the only chance of the game. And they just nailed it. So Qatar get props for that. But Switzerland, just disappointing for them. Not a great start. But they'll have to move on, shift forward, because they need to if they want to go far. Brazil vs Morocco, this was going to be the statement game of the weekend. I don't think it was even the best game, which is surprising, seeing that these are two top quality sides. I thought the first half started with fire. What a goal, Saibari. That 20th minute. How good was that chip over the top of the keeper? He is phenomenal, that Saibari. And he's not usually striker either. He's usually attacking mid. And we saw that during the game. He dropped deep and played around, helped with producing the opportunities. But the ball through the centre cut through Gabriel. And Brazil didn't look that solid in defence, which we thought they would. And that's where the opportunity came. Vinny Jr., we thought he'd produce some magic when he got onto the ball. It's inevitable, really, when he got onto that ball. He moved and scored in the right corner. What a goal. And it brought them right into the match. And I thought that would light up the match, bring the match to, this would be a high-scoring encounter. But really nothing else happened after that. I thought Abu Adi was quite awesome at producing defensive moves for Morocco, just in that defensive midfield. He's only 18 years of age, by the way. So this guy is someone to look out for in the future. And Brahim Diaz looked good, attacking with speed, and Cunha was great. But I think they just couldn't produce much at the end. And it prompts to the defence of both sides, because they did hold out, and Hakimi kept Vinny Jr. relatively quiet towards the end of the game. Plus some good goalkeeping as well. So it's showing how close these games are going to be. For Morocco, these two sides don't look just what we thought they'd be. Morocco definitely, I think that was quite a statement win. They're coming back up to, well, they never really left the level, but they're looking good, because they're not... Brazil are a really good side, but I don't think they stood out today. Oh no, yesterday. Sorry. So it'll be interesting to see how they work this out. Brazil, Cunha might be starting instead of Thiago, because Cunha was just great off the bench, I think. Haiti vs Scotland was after that. Scotland won 1-0. Haiti never really looked to threaten too much. Scotland were just... I'm just really liking the Scottish side. Gannon Doak was quite the man to play down that right side. He was pushing real high, and I thought his dribbling was really made some great opportunities for Scotland, including that first goal. But John McGinn, of course, yeah, it wasn't all him, that goal. He pretty much scuffed it, and it rebounded off one of the Haiti players. But he does show up in these big matches, John McGinn. And I think he's going to be key for Scotland if they want to qualify. And I think they could possibly be qualified already. 3 points could nearly do it for the third place side. Because 8 out of the 12 pool groups have their third place side go through. So really good for Scotland there, that win. And they only needed the one goal there. Now, my game of the weekend, Australia versus Turkey. Australia stood up. And now, people were saying, this is one of the greatest upsets over Turkey. This is a great upset for Australia. But it's not really an upset. I don't see it as upset hugely. I think they were definitely the underdogs. But Australia, why are they always coming to World Cups so underrated? Everyone puts them, they're going to go fourth, knocked out, third. Did you see what they did in the World Cup in 2022? And this side coming through, this is a young, exciting side for Australia. And one man I thought was just incredible, Iran Kunda, off the left midfield, scoring that goal. His pace was just obliterating. And that's where they got their attacks. They sit back, they defended really well, and then they launched into a counter-attack so well. And his speed is so important for that. Another big point was, what a goal for Metcalf. Man, that was a good goal. Puts it into the bottom right corner, outside of the box. These guys are going to produce some magic this World Cup. I'm telling you that now. And I cannot wait to see what they can produce from here on, because Australia and Turkey are two massive sides this World Cup. I think Turkey can go far as well. They've got a good side, but they couldn't finish those big chances. They don't have that big striker. Aktürkoğlu is usually a winger, and he's playing striker for them, or false nine. And that's where they really found pressure, putting it in the back of the net. They need to work on that moving forward, Turkey, because otherwise they're going to struggle against USA if they don't. And the only person that really stood out for me was, of course, Ardagula, because every time he gets the ball, I am worried. If you're an Australian fan, you're worried, because this guy, just every time he touched the ball, there was something magical about him. Man, he just something else, this young Real Madrid midfielder, Ardagula. And Beach for Australia was also standout. What a performance. Kept a clean sheet against Turkey and really was so big for this Australian side. And when he was on instead of Ryan, there were questions about that, but he stood up. Moving on. So this morning, I was worried for Germany. No, I wasn't worried for Germany. I was looking forward to this when it was 1-1, because Croatia were just looking really good. Germany were quiet at the start, I thought. And then suddenly Germany just flicked a switch and bang, they were away. Undav was just phenomenal. 1 goal and 2 assists coming off the bench. This guy has to be on the starting side. Second striker, I'd say, with Kai Havertz starting. Who goes off for him, though? Because Jamal Musiala, he surely has to be in the field starting. Jamal Musiala on the bench would be quite a statement. But Croatia, they started so well, and I think they were there for the right. They just needed that 1 goal, their fans who came 5,000 and out of the 150,000 they have in their country. That is quite a turnout. So, oh wow, what a match for Croatia being in the World Cup, but great. I think Germany needed this warming into the match, so then they could just hit some goals into the net, because that's what they needed to get going. And I think they could go far in this World Cup if they can sort out that starting performance. Then, of course, Netherlands played Japan just before. 2-2 draw between Netherlands and Japan. But I thought it was slow start, and then suddenly, bang, flicks the switch, Netherlands score, Van Dijk, what a header. This guy, what a player. Virgil van Dijk, still old, but he's experienced, still incredible player. How many times did he hit it out and produce an intercept at the back? This defence for Netherlands is quite just such a high level, higher than any other team, for sure. Yet they conceded 2 goals, and both were from deflections for Japan. And I think that last goal, they really... I don't know if the decision from the coach for Netherlands was wrong, because bringing in extra defenders and then suddenly conceding, so they're only 1 goal ahead. I think they needed another goal before they could put on that extra defender, Nathan Ake, because once they conceded, don't think they had many options up front to score again. They took some off. He was quite just great player off the right wing, cutting in. That goal was just top level, top class, and he's a man for the future for the Netherlands. He's definitely a starter for future, and Kubo was lit up the stage as well. Kubo, what a player to have on the right wing, and then suddenly they bring on Ito, who is just high quality as well, down that right. Both were so important for bringing those 2 goals for Japan and keeping it to 1 point, getting their 1 point from the game. So how big was that for them? 89th minute equaliser from Kamada, who didn't even know it came off him, off the corner, or the cross. Off the corner. And that really... It's these little goals can change how tournaments flow, because Netherlands looked in the hot seat. They felt good about themselves, and suddenly Japan, out of nowhere, scored that equaliser. So what a big finish for Japan. They are right in this World Cup now. Okay, let's move on, and we'll check over the tables now for these World Cup tournament groups. Okay, so in Group A, we have Mexico first, with that win over South Africa, and South Korea second with 3 points, both on 3 points, and Czech Republic and South Africa needing something extra to push them through, because they are going to need to put on something to bring them back, revitalise their World Cups, because that was possibly not where they wanted to kick it off like. That didn't really surprise me. I thought those 2 teams deserved to get those 3 points, so looking forward, they will be looking good to qualify now. Group B, 2 draws, so everyone is on 1 point. Switzerland, Canada, Qatar and Bosnia. Now this could be an interesting pool, because Switzerland, I thought, would just blow them out of the water, but now that I see it, Canada, Qatar and Bosnia are right on their tail, right beside them right now, and anyone can win it. Since Qatar drew against Switzerland, that just shows me anyone can get through. So this could be the lottery pool. Anyone really could get through here. Group C, Scotland, Morocco, Brazil, Haiti. Scotland with the 3 points, so that's really big for the World Cup. And Morocco and Brazil, I think they need to beat Haiti to get through, but that draw they would have wanted to win that match, especially Brazil, who are a decently strong side and won't want to be getting those third or second spots. So there'll be a big fight for those spots there, and it could end up 4-4-4. So that would really mix up the pool there, and it could come to goal difference around in that pool. Group D, USA and Australia, they stood out in this pool, and they are facing each other not too long. We're going to do a preview of that, of course. So that will be a great match. USA versus Australia. Turkey and Paraguay. Now they need to fix their World Cup. And it could be interesting for those two sides, because anything can happen in World Cups. And this is possibly my favourite pool because of the closeness between especially these three sides, and then Paraguay not too far behind, I would say. Group E, Germany beating Croatia, and Ecuador facing Ivory Coast very soon. You will have possibly ended by the time you've seen this. So I think this is a really close pool as well, and these two could be aiming for Germany to beat Germany, because they are some high quality sides and can cause upsets during this World Cup. And then of course Japan drew to Netherlands, and Sweden playing Tunisia later. So this is going to be interesting to see how this moving forward, this Football World Cup works out. Some big games coming up are obviously Ivory Coast, Ecuador. That will be really close. Iran versus New Zealand, that will be a match, because New Zealand, of course, my team. Can't wait to see how they get on. France versus Senegal, that could go interestingly. England versus Croatia, possibly my pick of the match for this whole group stage. So tune into that, and a whole lot more. So I will bring you some more news on the Football World Cup later, and I have some previews at the end of the pod I have posted right now, and so listen on to them. The previews are England versus Croatia and USA versus Australia, so listen in to them for more. Okay, we've got a lot of Super Rugby to delve into now with our Super Rugby talk, and with the Super Rugby Final just on the horizon, this has really ramped up the Super Rugby with what a weekend of semi-finals and two blowout matches, high-scoring encounters, and two sides that stood out, that deservedly are finalists. I think the two best sides by far in this competition this season. Chiefs beat the Crusaders 49-12, and the first half was where all the damage was done, and it was pretty much over when they headed into the sheds. Early missed tackles from the Crusaders let them down, and the Chiefs, with their massive ball runners, they've got some really exciting backs, and it looked like they were just running downhill that whole first half. Just too easy, and everything just worked out. They made very little mistakes, and they just kept making massive line breaks and got those big meters. They always put the Crusaders in the back foot so often and dominated in the Crusaders 22. Now, their backs through these runs were Quinn Tupaia. What a player this season. Definite All Black for me, and most likely a starter at 13. because he has just stood out. Those runs he makes through the middle, he's so powerful, and it's just what the Chiefs need to. And it puts pressure on that defensive line of any team, and especially the Crusaders on the weekend. And then the Chiefs also have runners such as Hutchinson, who has been standout over the past few weeks. And, of course, just those extra players they have that can make those big moves, such as Coombs Fabling breaking the line, and his chip kick over the top was quite phenomenal during the match, during the first half. Wow. It's pretty much a story of their game. The Chiefs, they just produced some magic. Tukiaho was power up front, and they produced their forwards and their backs just work together so well to use that up front power that they have and just put Crusaders on the back foot again and again and again. They had pretty much a perfect first half, with the backs producing that magic and going to the sheds at 42-5. Game was pretty much done. The Crusaders simply had no answer to that. Overall, it ended 49-12. What a win for the Chiefs. And they are looking in incredible form. Crusaders, by the way, were possibly the informed top side coming into these finals. If you'd watched them in the past few weeks, they have been just out of the world. And Chiefs at home just demolished them. So how good are they? They looking so good for this final against the Hurricanes. But now that we shift over to the Hurricanes, they are quite incredible as well. And it was quite a different sort of match. So close at half-time, 19-14, with Roygard obviously lighting up the game in that first half and the second half with his just awareness. That is our All Blacks halfback right there, because of just his overall game, and he can change games with the flick of a switch. His awareness just to see, look up, look at those defensive lines. Oh, there's no man there, and he goes straight into those holes. That's something else, to always be so aware and reads the game like a book. So Cam Roygard, he is such a leader in this Hurricanes side, yet it's not only him. It's the whole Hurricanes side that have been good this season. And they've snapped up on every opportunity they've had, and they did this during this match against the Blues. The Blues in the second half, they made just minor mistakes, a few ill-disciplinary issues, and they just snapped up on it, the Hurricanes. And their supporting runners, who have been so good this season, just on those breaks, were always there. That's where they have been best, on that break, from little mistakes. On those breaks with their backs, they are impossible to stop. What with Whittingham Northwell, Josh Morby, and then one guy who was absolutely incredible off the bench, Kenny Naholo. What a trio of wingers they have, the Hurricanes, because those guys, Whittingham Northwell holding the top scorer, level with the top scoring of all time record for one season in Super Rugby. Josh Morby, one try away from that. And Kenny Naholo, injured for most of the season, then comes back and scored, 3 tries in his past few games. This guy, this team is just stacked. It's a shame that they're all pretty much leaving next year. What stood out for me the most, though, for the Hurricanes is just their discipline. They are just so disciplined in the big moments. They don't throw any opportunities away. As I said before, And that bench is just impact. They lose nothing when they come off the bench, or very little, such as Cam Royd at guard coming off, and then Anari, who is not actually too far off of the highly likely All Blacks number 9. This Inardi, he'd be starting for most other teams in Super Rugby, and yet he's on the beach for our Hurricanes. And Kini Naholo, he would be starting for every other side as well. This bench is just incredible for the Hurricanes, and these guys, these men who are on the field playing, are just producing so many great opportunities, so many great moments. And Warner Dearns has stood out as well from the Hurricanes. He played so well last night as well. It's a shame he's leaving as well next year. But this side, to go from 19 to 14 and then just obliterate the Blues 57 to 21, how good is that? And that's why we bring you now to the Super Rugby Final, because these two sides, Chiefs and the Hurricanes, are going to face off in the... These have just been the two sides of the tournament. And that is why it's so fitting that they find each other in the final. Hurricanes, of course, at home is a great advantage for them. But now we'll have a quick think of the matchups now. So, up front, I think they'll be matched well. The hookers, that's where I find the best battle. Taukei'aho and Asafo Moore, how good have they been? That impact, that power, these are two All Blacks right there. And talking of All Black selections, there are so many between these two sides. These two sides could possibly put out a whole All Black starting 15. Now, I think the Hurricanes and the Chiefs as well match up in the locking department. What? Two All Blacks, Tupou Vai and Josh Lord. Wow, these guys are good. Wow, their ball running and their turnover and line-out ability is just quite phenomenal. Their work rate just is undermined and is so big for the Chiefs this season. And then the Hurricanes, they've got Warner Dearns. What a player. And who else has been there for? They've been really, really good, these Hurricanes players, these Hurricanes locks, for them. Caleb Delaney, what a player. Warner Dearns, standout. So they match up so well for these two sides. What else do we have to talk about? Loose forwards? Wow. Now they have power there. Luke Jacobson for the Chiefs. And a few big ball runners. Samapeni Finau. Now he's a big player for the Chiefs. And then the Hurricanes match up well. Duplessis Kirifi. Man, he is so huge in the leadership of the team. And he leads by absolute example. Peter Lakai. What a player. And then they've got the back line. The halfback battle, which is probably the most likely to be playing for the All Blacks, Cam Roigard and Cortez Ratama. And then throughout the back line, Dane McKenzie versus Ruben Love. What? This is crazy, these matchups. Billy Proctor versus Quinn Tupaia. Geordie Barrett versus Quinn Tupaia. Wow. And then the back threes versus each other. I think the Hurricanes and the Chiefs are not too far off each other in those back three. The Hurricanes, though, play a different style to the Chiefs. Their backs moves are their main success area, with their turnover approach, the way they get the ball, they turn it over so often, getting over the ball or winning line-out steals or things like that. That's how they get the ball, then they hold the possession. That's where they're most dangerous. That's how the Chiefs were most dangerous as well. Possession is where teams will win the game, because when they're on their game with the ball, the Hurricanes can produce incredible moves with the backs. And they can turn games with a flick of a switch. Their execution is top notch. The Hurricanes also match the Chiefs in their forwards area, so that's going to be also a big battle as well. The hard physical approach of the Chiefs and straightforward hit 'em hard approach from the Chiefs with line breaking backs is where they get their success. So if the Chiefs can make the Hurricanes tackle, I think they'll give them a good go. I think they can really win this. While the Hurricanes, if they can hold on to the ball and use their magic, they will be tough to stop. Both teams so good off the bench. So this is going to be a great matchup. Possibly one of the best finals to watch in Super Rugby history. I predict, now this is my forecast for this weekend, is that the Hurricanes will win by 1-7. Because the Hurricanes have just been top notch this whole season, and I think they can win out in the big games. Yes, they lost to, might have been the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs in a big game early in the season, but I think they're just too hard to stop when they're on their game, and I think they'll be on their game this weekend. Alright, tune in for more. Alright, on to the cricket corner, where I'm going to chat all cricket that's been going on. And headline for this week has been the second test coming up between England and New Zealand, starting very soon. And wow, there have been a lot of headlines outside of the cricket for this test series, because we have had so many big news things that have dropped, including Kane Williamson's retirement, and that means he's going to retire before the end of the series. So that means no Kane Williamson for the last 2 tests. So what do they do there? They've got to change up how they line up the side. And first of all, let's acknowledge Kane Williamson's career, because what a player. One of the best to ever play for the Blackcaps. One of the best batsmen with a 54 run average in Test cricket and 33 hundreds, the New Zealand record for most hundreds in Test matches. This guy has just been the anchor for New Zealand cricket for the past 10 or 15 years. And he's struggled over the past few years with a bit of, dropped out of captaincy, moved in and out of the Test team, played a lot of around the world cricket, but this guy has been the man for the Blackcaps to save games and be just the guy to look forward to when you're struggling for the Blackcaps. And what a career. This guy has produced some incredible numbers and been at the top of the world for quite a while. So it's disappointing to see him retire, but what a career. How are the Blackcaps going to adjust to this? Will be interesting. So let's have a look at some of their squad and how they will look to line up. So I'm guessing opening, they will line up with Tom Latham and Devon Conway opening. And then at 3 will be the question. Who's going to move into that role? Now, so let's just break down where they have got So possibles for that number 3 role are Henry Nicholls and Will Young, really. Unless Tom Latham or Devon Conway want to drop to 3 and Will Young opens. But I think Henry Nicholls will take it because he's had a bit of form recently. And I think he can move into that area. I think Henry Nicholls, he's showing a bit of grit to stay in this Blackcaps squad, and I think he deserves the shot there. Number 4 will have Daryl Mitchell. Number 5, I think it will be Glenn Phillips. He's been quite an anchor during that first Test match. Wow, we really dropped in batting, and there's going to have to be change this next Test match if we want to do well. 6 was Blundell, and then Jamison. Rachin Ravindra. Oh, was he opening? Might have to check that. Hold a second, because we need to check how they looked. So Tom Latham, Devon Conway, Kevin Winston, Will O'Rourke. Oh, that was because of the thing. Yeah, so I think Rachin Ravindra might come into that 3 now that I think about it. Instead of Henry Nicholls, or Henry Nicholls might be played somewhere around there. Mitch Santner surely comes into the side. I don't know how his fitness is at the moment, but Cole Jamieson should be there. Nathan Smith will be there. So that we've got some depth in the batting, even though it didn't show that. We were quite poor. O'Rourke and Tickner. No, do you think Tickner will start? Is Tickner going to play? I don't know. Did he play this last match? No, he didn't. No, I don't think Tickner will play. I personally not a hugely Tickner fan, but there will be some out there, and I think we've got our sort of paces at the moment. And if injury were to hit, we've got Matt Henry, what a player. But if injuries were to hit, Tickner would slide into that paces lineup. But the questions do come within New Zealand's batting, because they did not play well that first Test match. We've got to be honest. And the pitch definitely did not help us, but there were some poor decisions. Daryl Mitchell did not appeal to me during that match. They just weren't convincing to me, and they need to sort that out coming to this Test match. What could help them out is that they won't have their captain for England. Ben Stokes and Atkinson are out. And that is because of the club incident where they came in after the curfew and a bit of bad behaviour or some incident occurred at the club, so they are dropped. The captain for England is dropped. This is big because what is going on? What is going on for England's cricket? Because how do they... Ben Stokes' terrible decision to, first of all, go out to a club. Being captain, you're meant to lead and be the man setting the rules for coming back before curfew. But he's gone out with Atkinson, and he's gotten a mess, and this is poor decision making from England, and there's got to be change there. What are England fans thinking right now? Because they've backed Stokes and Brendan McCullum, and I think you can back Brendan McCullum, but I don't know. Ben Stokes, what is going on there, mate? Joe Root will come into skipper, but they're looking a bit thinner now with that position. Ben Duckett, and I wonder if Emilio Gay will open. It'll be interesting to see how they work that out. And then number 3, Bethel possibly, and then Joe Root, and then Harry Brook. So that's a stat. Harry Brook, the man, the myth, legend. Jamie Smith keeping, most likely. And then for the Pacers, I saw they were bowling well. Josh Tongue, he played well. Jofra Archer will likely come into this game. Ollie Robinson. Now, so I've got a still good lineup, but maybe a bit of lack of depth. Shea Bashir will possibly come in to bowl some spin. But it's an interesting situation for England, and possibly could be selling them what looked like a really good start, because now they are under pressure and the inside of their team is now going to be questioned. Their squad again, even after the huge questions after the Ashes, they're going to be questioned just because of this incident, and they've got right to do so, because Ben Stokes has made a terrible decision there. I wonder how this next test is going to work out with nippy conditions last test match and really tough batting pitches and conditions. So hopefully I will kind of want it to be a bit more exciting, a bit more batting involved. But it's always good to see bowlers get a good match under the belt. I think for the next test though, New Zealand can hit back and will beat England. That's my forecast. Okay, let's move to the Women's Cricket World Cup. So there have been some massive matches. It's just kicked off really recently. And England's women's side beat Sri Lanka by 87 runs. They gave them an absolute thrashing. Danny White-Hodge was so important for this. With 105 not out. What an innings. England look really good coming into this World Cup, and with that win, I think they'll be tough to beat. Australia will be tough to beat as well, beating South Africa by 65 runs. Wareham got 32 and 13 for 3, so that's an honourable mention there. But I think they're looking good as well, Australia, as they always are. They are a force when it comes to women's cricket and men's cricket as well, but women's, they dominate superbly. But Aussie will be a tough beat as well. So the White Ferns will be disappointed, because one of the games they would have hoped to get a win relatively easily was against the West Indies. Well, not easily, but one they'd rather win than England and Australia. And West Indies won by 7 wickets. Through Campbell with a 90 not out, but New Zealand looked good to start off with in batting. Izzy Gay started off well with a clinic, 39, but then 49 after 5.4 overs, they were looking so good. And their 3 quick wickets put them on the back foot, and consistent wickets kept them to score 162 for 6, which is a decent score, but poor fielding let them down. They were just not up to standard at all, fielding. And that's really disappointing to see when it's fielding. It's one of those things they can control really easily. And there were just so many dropped catches. The West Indies were allowed to get away. And it's not as though West Indies didn't give them any opportunities. They didn't thrash them. 3 balls. They only got it done with 3 balls a spare. And They gave so many catches out, and New Zealand just did not take any. It was horrific. The next match for the White Ferns is on the 17th on Wednesday, and they really have to pick it up when they play Sri Lanka then. They need to fix their fielding, and they need to win. This is a must win for them. If they got beaten by England by massive amount of runs, they need to win and fix their fielding and bring their best game, because otherwise they will struggle to make finals in this tournament. Okay, events coming up in the next week are There are more Football World Cup matches every day, so we can look forward to that. That is going to be my highlight over the next month. How good have they been so far, and how many more big matches with more matches that have a lot more on the line to come. So I'm really looking forward to that over the next week and month. That is such an exciting tournament to follow, the biggest in the world, and so many storylines to follow there. So keep watching from Forecast Sports, because we bring you so much coverage of that, with previews and reviews everywhere we post. Also, the US Open golfers are starting on Friday, so that will be interesting to see how that heads on, because a few majors have been played so far, but Rory McIlroy, but interesting to see how he plays over this next major, because he obviously won the Masters and then had a poor second major. I do really wonder whether he can pull it back now and get back on the A train, because that is something he hasn't really been a man for winning majors over the past long time. So only the Masters he's been able to achieve in a while. So that's his big stepping stone there. So he's going to be highly watched, and so too will be Scotty Scheffler. What a player. What a player. Also coming up, the All Blacks announcement will be on next Monday. So tune into that. We'll be bringing you next week's pod will be, a lot of that will be about the All Blacks announcement and the Super Rugby Final. So the Super Rugby Final will be played on Saturday, and then suddenly on Monday we'll have that coverage for New Zealand, and the All Blacks announcement. So that is going to be interesting to see. Some big calls to come for Dave Rennie, and what a upcoming schedule for them as well. So they're going to have a lot on the line looking forward. Also, State of Origin, Wednesday night, second match. Can Queensland hit back, because otherwise it's over for them. They really need to hit back and show they've got grit to finish out games. Their loss to the Blues was just disappointing. Bit of a clinic was put on by Cleary, though. That guy can change games for sure. And the ANZ Premiership Netball Finals for New Zealand. The elimination final is this weekend, so that will be a big match to tune into. That's coming up, and then the finals are next week, so tune into that as well. But we'll be back in a moment for some Football World Cup previews, so stay here. Okay, my England vs Croatia Football World Cup previews I am doing now, and this is going to be a great matchup. Now, these two sides Croatia have been really good at the last two World Cups, incredibly making two semi-finals and one final in their last two World Cups. And then England, just high-quality side overall. And their most recent form, both sides, on and off, they've struggled, and then they've also done well. England coming off 2 wins in friendlies, convincing one, their most recent win. And then Croatia, disappointing losses recently against Belgium and Brazil. But there are questions over both sides, I think. England, there are questions of whether they can live up to expectations, which there always are for England at World Cups, while Croatia, they are just... They're a young, they're an old side, experienced side, but then they're up-and-comers around there, and they've got to balance that out. They've got to make sure that they get selections right and are able to work together, as they usually are at World Cups. That's what's made their team so good. And that's the test here, whether they can do what they have done last 2 World Cups again. This is on the 17th on Wednesday over in America at Dallas Stadium. This is in Group L with Ghana and Panama. So possible teams that could be banana skins. They could slip over to Ghana especially. So this is a crucial match. And it most likely will decide the top spot. And that is big because the second place side is going to have a much tougher opposition than that first place side. So this is a really big match where they have to perform at a high level for this game. And they need to hit the ground running. England, they're strong. They've got magic outside the box, especially these midfielders and wingers. They've got some good playmakers as wingers. Just magical performance. Like these players can just produce a lot out of nothing, and that's what England pride themselves on. But they're not just individuals this World Cup. I think Tuchel's brought them better together as a team, and it's not just the fans' pick, it's the coach's pick, of course, and that's where they should get their most success with these. They're working together. If they can work together, I think they will be a really tough team to beat. Croatia, on the other hand, they've just got a really experienced midfield. And their team, they pride themselves on their teamwork, how well they work as a team. That's what brought them through in the World Cups. And living for the big moment, beating the big teams. They love doing that. They love being the underdogs, and that's where they achieve their best football. This midfield is going to be key. Modric and Kovacic, Kramaric, Perisic, Pasalic. So many itches. But those guys are going to be key for them to produce big results. Their weaknesses, England are vulnerable on the counter-attack. And we've seen that a few times. They do get caught out. But that's all like a lot of these big teams who sit up front. And Croatia also fall vulnerable to their issue as well sometimes. Especially with fast attackers when they're defending, because they don't have that much speed in defence. So those fast attackers, especially Madueke and Gordon, may get behind those defenders and produce opportunities. That's where they could match up, and that's where they could win or lose. Vardio will be key at cutting down, especially Madueke on that right wing side, or Gordon or Rashford, whoever is playing there. Well, key players, of course, Harry Kane, the man of England. This guy's going to be key of how they play. And he's not going to be a usual striker. I think him and Bellingham will rotate around in that front position, as they have been. And Kane dropping deep to produce opportunities is so key for their success. Bellingham playing that false nine with Kane, they can then have someone up top finishing opportunities. So they will get a lot of creativity through Kane and their wingers. So that's where England are so good. And Pickford will also be a key player for England, as he is just... It just depends. He's going to be so important. If he performs, then England will be happy. If he doesn't perform, then they may struggle. Pickford has been so key as a goalkeeper. He's not the best goalkeeper in the world, but he has been a key man for England in that goal, and he always stands up for them with the white shirt. So he's one of their big players within their team. Croatia, of course, Modric and Vardio. Those are the two guys that they look to for producing big moments. Vardio will be key being the man in defence, and Modric, because this defence isn't perfect, I don't think. I think there's a lot of improvements they could make. They're not amazing in defence, so he's got to be key. And Modric is just Luka Modric, 40 years of age, or however old he is. This guy doesn't stop. He's still going to be quality, high quality, and he's key in producing Croatia's success. The key battles within this match, I think, will be. I think it'll come within the wingers and fullbacks matchups, because that's where I think England slightly outplay Croatia. But the big areas is, I think, the scoring area, because Croatia, I don't think, have that great players to finish off goals and put the finishing touches, while Harry Kane is phenomenal at that. That is where the big success could come. Harry Kane versus those defenders of Croatia. That's where I think England can win the game. Those defensive midfielders, Rice, Anderson, Kovacic, Modric, those guys will also be dominating the play, controlling the game, controlling the flow. It'll be interesting to see the tempo they try to produce within this match, because they could decide how they produce chances, control the game, will be decisive in how they play. One tactical point I think comes from this match is that the wingers for England are going to be key, and the fast players within transition. Whoever is good within transitions is going to produce chances, because these two sides are both quite vulnerable to quick transitions. The big factor, I think, though, is the midfield battle. And the best creators will win. If Luka Modric turns it on, then I think they have a massive chance, Croatia. While England, if they've got so many creators, if they can produce chances and put them in the back of the net, they will win. So overall, I think England have more depth within their team, more players that can create and finish chances. So I forecast that England will beat Croatia 2-0. Right, tune in for more. Alright, so this is possibly my match, one of my most exciting matches of the group stage, because Australia and the USA are going to battle it out for top place in their Group D, where they have Paraguay and Turkey as well. So this is going to be such a big match for both of these sides. World Cup hopes. Now, USA have beat Paraguay in a great win. They produced so many great opportunities and big moments, and tactically just outplayed Paraguay and split Paraguay's defence apart. While Australia did exactly the same, well, not the same tactics, but won tactically over Turkey. Now, they played completely different tactics, these two sides, so it'll be a great matchup on Friday the 19th to see how they work against each other. They'll be playing at Seattle Stadium, and this is going to be a very decisive game. Now, USA, they played under Pochettino with left-sided rotations and really packed down that left side and rotated so their right back would drop in to make three at the back and Robinson would go high at left back. Now that's where they got their success, pushing and making overloads down that left side. Pulisic, Robinson and McKennie and Tillman, all four of them a huge all running down that left side. Now, if they can do that again, McKennie is allowed to run and go wherever he likes, and Australia can't shut that down, then they could be incredibly dangerous. Australia, though, shut Turkey's left side attack down very well. Ardagula is a key man for Turkey, and they completely quiet him down. He only got a few opportunities where he was phenomenal, but still they quieted him down and then hit them on the counter-attack, Australia. And that is where they produce the opportunities on that counter-attack with the speed, down the left especially. Iran Kunda, man, that guy is a player. Oh, I just loved watching that speed he produced, and that goal he scored was just phenomenal. Wow, these guys are good. And it's not just how they attack, it's how they defend. They set up 5-4-1. Now, they are so well defensively placed. Burgess was great. Italiano was fantastic. Suter was great. These guys stay tight, and they just made so many defensive contributions that Turkey just weren't allowed through them. And having that 5-4-1 means they are just sitting in a low block, not letting anything through, and then they straight away, on that transition, bang, they're away. They could be vulnerable, though, if they can't get back in time, but they have speed anyway to get back. Also, weaknesses for USA is they are vulnerable to transition. So this could be interesting to see if Australia get that speed at the transition like they did against Turkey. I think they will match USA really well. And I think this could be Australia's World Cup. They could produce some magic. So I think that's where they can really take USA to the sword. Australia, though, lack in depth. So off the bench, they may struggle. And that last little bit could be where USA can counter. But then again, we saw in the game for USA against Paraguay, they didn't really produce that match in the second half. Other than that phenomenal goal at the end, they didn't really produce that much. So we might see just a first half obliteration and then suddenly it quiets down in the second half. Or they might both go for it in the second half, and it might be the greatest second half of all time. Who knows? But it will be interesting to see how they work that. Pulisic is a key player within this team. And he didn't play he played well, obviously. The whole team for USA played well last match, but he wasn't the main man during that match. But I think he'll still be the main man during this match, because this guy can produce some chances down their left, and that's where they work their best. Balogun obviously was the man last match, but I think he'll get chances from these sort of players such as Pulisic. And then the other player that's key for USA is McKennie. Now, quietly, he is just the man that fluidly rotates everywhere within the match. And that is how they get so many opportunities and overloads USA. And they get so much success from that. Australia will have to shut him down and make sure they counter with these overloads. And not allow them through. Iran Kunda for Australia is a key man for them. In attack, his speed is just obliterating. He can tear up defences with that speed, and he can also finish as well, as we saw. So this guy is going to have to be stopped by USA, otherwise it's going to be a tough match trying to hold him back. Metcalf is also a great player. So these wingers, left and right midfielders, are key. So key for Australia because of the runs they make. And Metcalf's goal against Turkey was just incredible. Incredible. And he showed up during the match as well. They play down those wings, Australia, on their counter-attacks. And they get opportunities from there. I am so excited to see how they work this during this match. Right, one tactical point, I think. Australia sit with a back five and will hit USA with that speedy counter. That tactics. Now, five at the back, they may find themselves not be able to get many players forward in attack. But what they did against Turkey was those wingers were just so fast that they didn't need as many players. Toure is a support player up there with those wingers. And 3 on pretty much 3 or 4 is pretty much all they need when they've got that speed. But overall, this match, I think, will be decided from those playmakers. From Irankunda, Metcalf, Pulisic, McKennie, and Tillman. Those guys are going to be playmaking, and I think they won't have too much stress putting in the back of the net. I think it'll just be producing the opportunities is where the game will be won and lost. My prediction for this match is Australia will produce another upset. Even though it wouldn't really be an upset in my mind, but I believe that they will beat USA 3-2. What a result. Alright, that's it for this big podcast. Thanks for listening in, and I hope to see you again. So much to look forward to within the next month or so with this FIFA World Cup on, and so many more big matches on to watch. So tune in for more. Come to the channel again. Thanks for listening.